It's live streaming. Yes. Okay. Students, in the previous class, we have learned about the salient features of Indian Constitution, and we have discussed Article 19(1) of the Indian Constitution and reasonable restrictions on the freedom of speech and expression. Today, we'll discuss about the Press Council of India. As part of your syllabus, you have Press Council of India and its objectives and functioning. Okay, that we'll discuss today. And if we have some more time, we'll discuss about the salient the code of ethics which are to be followed by the journalists while working in the media organizations or media institutions. Okay, so see the Press Council of India, if you see the organization, like the main media industry, there are many newspapers and other periodicals like magazines are there in our country. As journalism is a profession which would be providing us a lot of information that is required for us and what is happening throughout the globe that we want to know with the help of the media institution. And media is having a special responsibility towards the citizens. It provides information, education, and also entertainment to the general public. So it can be the readers, or it can be they can be the listeners of the various radio stations, or they may also be the audience of the television. So here the media provides us with the information and here it also have a special responsibility towards the citizens while serving their interests. So here there is a theory called social responsibility theory that speaks about that the media has a social responsibility and it has an obligation to serve the individuals in our society. So here, the Press Council of India came to existence based on the recommendations of the First Press Commission. Okay, the press, as you already know the history of press in the first semester, that the Bengal Gazette was the first newspaper that was started by James Augustus Hickey in our country in 1780. And you might also learned about the prominent personalities who started the various newspapers, even Mahatma Gandhi, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, or Kandukuri Vidishalingam Pantulo, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, or there are many people who fought for the social reform in our country. So the primary aim of the newspapers when they were started was the motive was to serve the people with the right kind of information and to promote the social education in our country and to eradicate social evils in our country. But later on, now if you see the media has become like any other industry, and it is more into using this mediums as for the purpose of business, or maybe it is to serve the various interests of the stakeholders. And also in the previous class, like we have discussed that media also acts as a mediator between organization and also the public. Just okay. The first press commission, which was constituted after in the year 1952 on September 23rd, 1952, the first press commission was constituted, appointed by the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. And the first press commission was also called as a commission on the freedom of the press. And the commission was asked to study the status of press in our country. And the first press commission inquired about the various aspects that might affect the media industry or the press in maintenance of high standards of professional journalism. They studied the financial structure of the newspapers. They studied the ownership patterns. They also studied the other aspects that might affect the press while following while maintaining the standards in their newspapers. And they submitted its report in the year 1954, and they recommended to constitute a press council to regulate the press in our country. And the first one, if you see, the first press council that was constituted in Sweden in the year 1916, that was called as the Court of Honors for the press. And in our country, if you see, the first press council of India was constituted on July 4th, 1966, based on the act that was constituted in the year 1965, that is the Press Council Act of 1965. So here, the First Press Commission recommended recommended to constitute the Press Council of India, and they also listed the major objectives of the Press Council of India in their recommendations. And based on the recommendation of the First Press Commission, the Press Council of India came to existence on July 4th, 1966, with Justice J.R. Mudolkar as the first chairman of the Press Council of India. And the Press Council of India, the primary function of the Press Council of India is to preserve the freedom of the press, or to protect the freedom of the press and the independence of newspapers, and also to build a code of conduct for the journalists in maintenance of high standards of professional journalism. So if you see the Press Council of India, in a democratic country, as you already know, media is also considered as a fourth estate or fourth pillar of the democracy, along with the judiciary, executive, and administrative. And media is not only the press, but all forms of the media institutions. They call them as the fourth estate. So here, the press is a fourth estate, and it is functioning in a democratic society. And if the democratic society has to function, the media institutions have to be three in those kind of institutions which bring what is happening in the government or in the society, that the media or the press will brought to the attention of the general public. So if you see, I will be sharing a screen. Just will share screen. Okay. I think you are now able to see the screen also. Okay. So the press, what we are discussing, so it also acts as a watchdog of the society, and it works for the public and protecting the public interest. And to function in a democracy or a society, press has to be free from all forms of all forms of what restrictions. So here, the media institutions have to be autonomous and they are not to be hindered or obstructed by any authority, organized bodies or individuals. But even though sometimes media institutions are attacked by some individuals who are maybe support some individual organizations or political parties, etc., for publication of any information in their newspapers. But media has to have freedom of speech and expression. And the media institutions also have act, work in the institutions while serving the public with a sense of responsibility. And there are code of ethics. Code of ethics are ethical principles are nothing but they are non-mandatory principles which a journalist has to follow while they are working in the media institutions. So here, the ethics, the word ethics, the comes from a word called ethos. Then if you see the ethics, they are non-mandatory principles or they are the one which will tell us what is right and what is wrong. So here, the ethics will help each and every individual who are working in the media organizations, whether to carry a story or whether not to carry a story, or what would be the consequences of carrying a story in the newspapers, etc. Whether it will have negative consequences or positive consequences. So the first press commission, just now I said, it was headed by Justice Rajadaksha, and the first press commission is the one which recommended to constitute Press Council of India to regulate the press in our country. And the first press council was constituted on July 4th, 1966, with Justice J.R. Mudorkar as the first chairman of the Press Council of India. And when the Press Council of India was constituted in the year 1966, based on the Press Council Act of 1965, that was headed, the Press Council of India was headed by a chairman, and there are 25 other members, and the Press Council of India chairman should be appointed by the Chief Justice of India. But later on in the year 1970, they have changed the appointment of the chairperson or chairman of the Press Council of India would be done by a nominating panel that would consist of Rajya Sabha chairman, speaker of Lok Sabha, and Chief Justice of India. But even though later again the Press Council of India will reconstituted based on the 1978 Press Council Act, the Press Council of India again revived or reconstituted in the year 1979. In that 1979, the chairman's position and the members of the Press Council of India, the chairman would be nominated by the Speaker of Lok Sabha, a committee that consists of chairman of Rajya Sabha, Speaker of Lok Sabha, and one member who is elected among the members of the Press Council. And here, if you see the composition, just now I said that in the year 1965, whatever the Press Council Act which came to existence, and in the year 66, it was constituted, it was having only 25 members and a chairperson. And the major objectives of the Press Council of India is to help the newspapers to maintain their independence. That was the primary objective, and to build a code of conduct for newspapers and journalists in accordance with high professional standards. And here, the Press Council of India is a body which provides code of ethics for the journalists and those who are working in the newspapers and also working in the uh, news agencies. And the another objective of the Press Council of India is to ensure on part of the newspapers and journalists the maintenance of high standards of public taste and foster a due sense of both the rights and responsibilities of citizenship. To encourage the growth of a sense of responsibility and public service among all those who are in the profession of journalism. To keep under review any development that is likely to restrict the supply and dissemination of information of news of public interest and importance, to keep under review any such cases of assistance received by newspaper or news agency in India of a foreign sources or a foreign person. And provided that nothing in this clause shall, it is okay. The other function is to provide proper facilities for training, education persons who are in the profession of journalism. To promote proper functional relationship among all those who are engaged in the profession of journalism, to study the development that may tend towards monopoly or concentration of ownership of newspapers, including the study of ownership or financial structure of newspapers, if necessary, to suggest remedies thereof, and to promote technical and other research. And if you see the 1965 Act, it was having only 25 members and the chairperson. And in the year 1970, when the Press Council Act was amended, that provided one seat to the persons who owns a news agency or managing a news agency. And later on, the Press Council of India Amendment Act, which came into existence in the year 1970, even the selection procedure for the people who are nominated from among the members who were having special knowledge and practical experience in the field of science, technology, law, literature, culture, etc., was specified. And even along with that, among the people, those who are going to be nominated for the positions, those who own the newspapers, etc., among that, again, they specified the two members each who owns big newspapers, among the two members to be nominated for the members of the Press Council of India who owns newspapers from medium newspapers, and also each two other members to be nominated from the persons who are owning a smaller newspapers. That was also specified. And the Press Council of India, whatever constituted in the year 1966, based on the 1965 Act, functioned till December 1975, and during the internal emergency in our country that was imposed by Srimati Indira Gandhi when she was the Prime Minister of this country, the Press Council Act was repealed, and after that, on January 1st, 1976, the Press Council of India was abolished. And if you see the Press Council of India, which was reconstituted in the year 1979 based on the Press Council Act of 1978. So a fresh legislation was passed which provides for setting up of Press Council of India that was enacted in the year 1978, and the Press Council reconstituted in the year 1979. And whatever the Press Council now we have in India is based on the 1978 and whatever the Press Council which was constituted in the year 1979. So at present, the Press Council of India consists of 28 members and a chairman. And from this 28 members of the Press Council, 13 members who represent the working journalists. Out of these 13 members, 6 are to be the editors of newspapers, and the remaining 7 are working journalists other than the editors of the newspapers. And there are 6 members who are among the persons who own or carry on the business of management of newspapers. 1 is to be from the persons who manage the news agencies. So here, from the 6 members who are among the members who own or carry on the business of newspapers, from there are 2 members to be nominated from the people who own big newspapers, 2 members, those who own medium newspapers, and 2 members, those who own small newspapers. And 1 member, just now I said, who owns a news agency would be the member of the Press Council of India. And there are 3 other members who are to be nominated, those among those who are having special knowledge or practical experience in respect of education, science, law, literature, and culture. Then 5 members are to be nominated by the Parliament. So the remaining 5 members are to be nominated by both the houses of Parliament, that is Lok Sabha and also the Rajya Sabha. And here the 5 members, out of these 5 members who are to be nominated by the Speaker of Lok Sabha and the Chairman of Rajya Sabha. The Speaker of Lok Sabha will nominate 3 names for the positions to become the members of the Press Council of India, and the Chairman of Rajya Sabha would recommend 2 names for the position of members of Press Council of India. And the 3 members who are having special knowledge or practical experience in respect of education, science, law, literature, and culture, these 3 members are to be nominated, each one by the University Grants Commission, Bar Council of India, and Sahitya Academy. Then when it comes to the position of the chairman, the selection of the chairman has been done by a nominating committee that consists of the chairman of Rajya Sabha, the Speaker of Lok Sabha, and a person who is elected among the members of the council themselves. So, one member from among the members of the Press Council, they would elect 1 member who is going to be sitting in the committee that would recommend the name for the position of the chairman of the Press Council of India. And the term of the chairman and other members of the Press Council of India is 3 years, and a retiring member is eligible for renomination for not more than 1 term. And when the 1978, when the Press Council of India reconstituted in the year 79, the 78 Act also again, along with the list of objectives which were proposed in the year in the Press Council Act of 1965, along with that, another uh, list of three objectives also added to the existing objectives of the Press Council of India. The three objectives are to undertake studies of foreign newspapers, including those brought out by any embassy or any other representative in India of a foreign state, their circulation and impact, to undertake such studies as may be entrusted to the Council and to express its opinion in regard to any matter referred to it by the central government. The other functions of the Council remain same as which were listed in the Press Council of India, Press Councils Act of 1960. Then, if you see the funding, the Press Council of India, the functions of the council to meet the expenses, they levy fees at the prescribed rates from the registered newspapers and news agencies in our country. And apart from this, the central government also provides the funding in the form of grants, and based on that, the grants which they receive by levying fees on the registered newspapers, and the grant which they receive from the central government, based on that they would function. And based on the Section 13(2)(b) of the Press Council Act of 1978, the Press Council of India enjoys the powers to build up a code of conduct for the newspapers, news agencies, and journalists in accordance with high professional standards to help and guide the news. The Press Council of India is established to preserve the freedom of the press and to maintain and improve the standards of newspapers in our country, and it also has powers to build up a code of conduct for the newspapers, news agencies, and journalists. And in October 1992, the Council published an updated but succinct compilation of the principles of journalistic ethics, sorted out from the adjudications of the Council and guidelines issued by it in their wake. And the Guide to Journalistic Ethics was further revised in 1995 by the press chairman, Mr. P.B. Sawant, Mr. Justice P.B. Sawant. And if you see the what are the guidelines which are provided by the Press Council of India? We'll discuss that also. Just a minute. Yes, I think you will not be able to satisfy increasing the. Okay. The Code of Ethics, which are issued by the Press Council of India, while covering various beats. So here you already know what is a beat. Beat is a specific area that is going to be covered by a particular journalist. So here While covering various beats or while covering various issues or instances, the media has to be self-regulating. As the media, whatever we have, it is a self-regulating itself. So media ethics or the journalistic ethics, just now I said, they are non-mandatory principles which a journalist or a newspaper industry has to follow while covering various issues in the newspapers. So the ethical principles that we will discuss now. So the ethical principles that a journalist and newspaper has to follow, those are whatever are called as media ethics. So the ethics are non-mandatory principles which would tell us what is right and what is right. And media ethics are the guidelines or the principles which a journalist has to follow while working in the media institutions. So if you see the uh, guide to journalistic ethics, the guide to journalistic ethics that was proposed by the Press Council of India, accuracy and fairness. The first uh, ethical principle. The fundamental objective of journalism declares the guide is to serve the people with news, views, comments, and information on matters of public interest in a fair, accurate, unbiased, sober, and decent manner. And publication of inaccurate, baseless, graceless, or misleading or distorted information has to be avoided, and proper verification of the facts is required. It has to be done by the journalist before publishing any information. It is the duty of a journalist to verify the facts. And when it comes to the caution against defamatory writing, the newspaper should not publish anything which is per se derogatory or libelous against any individual or organization unless after due care and checking they have sufficient reason to believe that it is true and its publication will be for public good, then the information can be published by the newspapers. And pre-verification of reports is necessary when you are publishing any information. Whenever a newspaper receives any report or article that contains defamatory or derogatory imputations or comments against a public figure or public servant or any public organization, relates to his or her personal conduct or public conduct or character insofar as it appears that the conduct the editor should, before publishing the information, it has to verify the facts. If you see the privacy issues, each and every individual, we have right to privacy, and even the Supreme Court of India in 2017 declared that right to privacy is a fundamental right of each and every citizen in this country, and each and every individual is entitled to their right to privacy. So here, the media should not invade the privacy of individuals, but when it comes to the privacy, a public figure may not exercise the same kind of privacy as an ordinary citizen. So, what constitute privacy information? So, the things which relates to a person's home, family, religion, health, sexuality, personal life, and private affairs are covered by the concept of privacy, excepting where any of these impinge upon the public or public interest. So here, when you report on the victims of sex crimes or caution against publication of names or pictures has to be taken. While reporting crime involving rape, molestation of women, of sexual assault on children, raising doubts and questions touching the chastity, personal character, and privacy of women. So when you are reporting in that involves the crime, rape, molestation of women, sexual assault on children, or anything that doubt that creates a kind of doubt about the character of people, etc., or any information to this. So privacy of women, the names, photographs, and any details that would link to the identification of a person should not be published because it may cause a social embarrassment to the family members or any other individuals in the family. So, publishing any details like the name, photograph, etc., has to be avoided in this. And corrections, when any factual error or any mistake, if it is detected and confirmed, the newspaper has to publish the correction promptly with due prominence and with an apology statement expressing its regret in publishing the information. And right of reply, it is also the duty of the newspaper to publish the information or the person if feels aggrieved by for the information that is published in the newspapers. If that is brought to the attention of the concerned editor, then it is the duty of the editor to publish that information in the form of a rejoinder. Or if whatever they published, if it is correct, the same has to be communicated to the complainant. And here, in some of the cases, it is also the duty of the concerned newspaper editor to publish a rejoinder or corrected information relates to the news item that is printed in the newspaper. So here, even the newspapers have a responsibility to publish the letters to the editor. So each newspaper has its own letters to the editor's column where a newspaper reader expresses his opinion. And depending on the space available in the newspaper, some of the letters only may get into the pages and some letters to the editors may not be published due to the space in the lack of space in the newspapers. And when you are publishing letters to the editor. So when you, again, the newspapers should, as a matter of self-regulation, exercise due restraint and caution in presenting any news, comment, or information which is likely to jeopardize, endanger, or harm the paramount interests of the state and society or the rights of individuals for the protection of which reasonable restrictions may be imposed by law on the right to freedom of speech and expression under uh, Article 19(2) of the Indian Constitution. Uh, Again, when you see the communal disputes, so communal violence, we have a communal violence bill also that is not yet passed by the parliament. According to the communal violence bill, any act or a series of acts, whether planned or spontaneous, that would harm the individuals or their property wantedly, it is being executed uh, as the individuals belong to a certain group. It can be a religious group or a minority group, or it can be a ethnic group. So because they belong to this section, a mob might attack this section. So here in communal violence, there are many people, they might have been killed. The major communal violence which took place in our country is the 1984 anti-Sikh riots. So here Mrs. Gandhi uh, attacked the Golden Temple with under the directions or under the orders of the Srimati Indira Gandhi when she was the Prime Minister of this country. They have attacked the army persons or army, the Indian army attacked the Golden Temple to evacuate Journalisam Brindanwale. He was the one who was staying in the Golden Temple uh, uh, and running a kind of parallel government in Punjab. So he wanted to have a separate Punjab state with full of rights which they demanded in their proposal to the government, and he was also supported by the state government at that time in Punjab, and to evacuate the Brindan Valley, and there are many members who were protesting at Golden Temple, and the Mrs. Gandhi ordered to evacuate or to attack the Brindan Valley, Junel Singh Brindan Valley, and others who were residing in Golden Temple, and the army persons went and killed many people in 1984 and sorry, 1982. Then it might be in 84 only. So here, even Junel Singh Brindanwale also was killed, and after that, many Sikhs were also killed in the Golden Temple attack. Later on, because of the attack on Golden Temple, the Sikhs, etc., two Sikh bodyguards of Srimati Indira Gandhi killed, uh, assassinated her by attacking. And if you say, when you report on communal violence or communal issues, the news views comments relating to communal violence or religious disputes or clashes should be published only after proper verification of the facts. And they have to present it with due care and restraint in a manner which is conducive to the reaction of atmosphere that should be like which promotes communal harmony, amity, and peace. When you report on communal issues, sensational, provocative, alarming headlines have to be avoided. And acts of communal violence or vandalism should be reported in a manner that should not undermine the people's confidence in law and other machinery of the state. And when you want to give community-wise figures of the victims of communal rights, uh, it should not inflame passions or it should not promote communal violence. So you have to be very careful in writing about these kind of issues. And when it would uh, providing community-wise figures, if that is going to promote communal violence, you can avoid printing those kind of information. And when you are speaking about the headlines should justify what is printed under the headline, and the individual persons. Suppose headlines containing allegations which are made in statements, it is the duty of the media should identify the person who made the allegations, and you also have to provide the source and the allegation, and the one who made the statement has to be identified within the courts. When you are recording on uh, when you report interviews and phone conversations, etc., the journalist should not take record anyone's conversation without the knowledge of your source, except where the recording is necessary to protect the individual journalist in a legal action. Then, in those kind of cases, you can do it, but you have to take permission from the sources. When you see on this plagiarism, using or passing off the writings or ideas of one as others, etc., or our own is a unethical practice, and it has to be avoided by the journalist. When you see the obscenity and vulgarity has to be avoided. Newspapers and journalists should not publish anything that is obscene, vulgar, or offensive to the public taste. Newspapers should not publish any advertisement containing any material which is unlawful or illegal and contrary to the taste. And it is also against the journalistic ethics or the principles. And it is also the duty of the journalist and the newspapers should not publish or display any advertisements that are vulgar and where the women are depicted in nude or semi-nude, or that would provoke the men or community, etc. And glorifying violence has to be avoided by the newspapers and the journalists. So the newspapers and journalists should avoid presenting the acts of violence, robberies, terrorists, attacks, etc., in a manner that glorifies their acts or death in the eyes of the public. Glorification and encouragement of social evils has to be avoided. And even caution must be taken while reporting on the judicial acts, the judgments, or any news related to the judiciary has to be reported in a fair, balanced way to avoid contempt of court cases by the media organizations. And bringing the judgments or any other acts of the judiciary in a fair, balanced, accurate way to the attention of public would not constitute contempt of court. And the newspapers also should avoid crass commercialism, while newspapers are entitled to ensure, improve, or strengthen their financial viability by all legitimate means. They should not engage themselves through the print media and gross commercialism or unseemly cutthroat competition with their rivals for earning more profits for their proprietors in a manner which is repugnant to high professional standards. Photographs of dead bodies when you are publishing. Photojournalism is also an important part of your print journalism, and intrusion through photography into the personal life also likely to hurt the sentiments and arouse communal passions that should be avoided by the journalists and the newspapers. Publication of photographs serving the larger public interest cannot be termed as unethical or in bad taste, but even the caution must be taken. Caste, religion, or community disclosures are to be generally avoided, and in general, the newspapers should not identify a person who is belong to a scheduled caste or depressed class with reference to his caste by use of word Harishan should be avoided, particularly when you report on sensitive issues. It is also the editor's responsibility for all matters that are published in the newspapers. So it is the editor, he has to assume responsibility for all the matters which are printed in the newspapers, including advertisements published in the newspapers. If responsibility is disclaimed, they shall be explicitly stated before. Unconfirmed news, when you are going to report unconfirmed news, you should not report. Confidence to be respected. If you have received any information in confidence from a source, the confidence you have to respect. The journalist cannot be compelled to provide the names of the source unless it is being asked by the court when defamation charges are being imposed on journalists or the newspapers. And dummy advertisements, publication of any dummy advertisements that have neither been paid for nor authorized by the advertisers constitute the violation of journalistic ethics. So these are the principles which a journalist or the media organization has to follow while covering various kinds of news for their newspapers. So we'll wind up here today. We'll have our next class. We will have our class tomorrow at 12 o'clock. Okay, I'm leaving the session.